Welcome to Learning Module 7, Evaluation of Research Resources. In this learning module, you will learn how to distinguish between the types of periodicals available for research. Okay, so what are the different types of periodicals available for research, or those you might find in an electronic database, like Academic Search Complete or LexisNexis Academic? Well, the periodicals that you will encounter are things like magazines, newspapers that are more popular, and then journal articles. Why is it important to evaluate periodical articles that we find? The importance of evaluating information sources is based solely on their scholarship, authority of the authors, and timeliness. Scholarly sources that you'll be introduced to a little later are aimed at an audience of practitioners or researchers or experts in various subject fields. General sources are intended for the non-expert public and may present information that hasn't been reviewed by experts. These are things that you're going to find in newspapers and magazines. On this slide, can you distinguish between popular sources and scholarly sources by looking at the cover? Under the popular magazine section, you'll notice Field and Stream, Oprah Magazine. Here, visually, we can recognize that these are popular magazines and that they can be purchased anywhere, Walmart, a bookstore, etc. On the other side, you'll notice scholarly journal articles, and you'll notice the cover. Here's one from the Journal of Clinical Forensic Medicine and also the Journal of Asian Economics. The covers look quite different than the popular magazines. Here you're going to get more research articles, and these are going to be publications that are going to be predominantly found in libraries. When thinking of periodicals and how to evaluate between the various types, the magazines, the journals, and newspapers, you often have to consider the summary of factors. One is the audience. Who is the intended audience for the publication, for the article that you're reviewing? Is the intended audience researchers or college students or the general public? Authors. When thinking of the author, you're looking for things like the authority, their credentials. Does the author have a university affiliation? Do they have a PhD? Do they have an MD? Or are the authors staff writers or journalists? The documentation is the next piece. This indicates the comprehensiveness of the publication and the analysis of the subject matter. Documentation is key to identify between popular and scholarly sources. The format and the structure of the article is also evident in identifying if it's a popular source, like a magazine or newspaper, or a scholarly source like a journal article. And then finally, the publisher is another factor to consider. Is this a standard publisher in the field? The first type of source that we're going to evaluate is we're going to take the journal realm. Journals are broken down into two categories: scholarly journals and peer-reviewed and also refereed journals. What is a peer-reviewed refereed journal? These are journals that are written for other scholars. They usually have authors with credentials, usually contain few advertisements or photographs, and the articles are research focused, so they're not meant to entertain. You can often identify a peer-reviewed refereed publication by looking at the format of the article. If you have a PDF copy of the article or you're looking at the article in print, look for things like identifiers, like an abstract, an introduction, a literature review, a method of data collection, analysis, and conclusion. If your article has these components, then this is probably a peer-reviewed refereed publication. These are scholarly articles that are published and they pass through an intensive research process. So before these articles are published in the field, in the particular publication, they go through a pretty scrutinized process, and they're reviewed by a panel of experts in the field. Here's an example from the New England Journal of Medicine. Here you have the publication date, the volume, the issue number, the title of the article, and then you'll notice all of the authors that are listed that either have PhDs or medical degrees. This is an identifier that this is a journal article. You'll also notice that you have things like abstracts, backgrounds, and methods. Here the article is broken up into subcategories. So you're looking at the format of the article and identifying in this one that is indeed peer-reviewed. The next type of journal that we're going to look at is the scholarly journal. So what are scholarly journals and how can they differ from the peer-reviewed journal? Well, the scholarly journal articles are articles that are written by and they're addressing experts in a particular discipline. Very similar to peer-reviewed. Here the articles are more concerned with an academic study, especially research, and some type of demonstration of methods and concerns of scholars. The main purpose of the scholarly journal article is to report the original research or experimentation and to communicate the information to the rest of the scholarly world. So here you're going to have authors that may have particular credentials like a university degree or university affiliation. They're going to contain few photographs or advertisements. Here, if the article is being published, the editors decide, if you remember, the panel of experts in the particular field decide whether the article is published in a peer-reviewed, hence the word peer, in a peer journal article. Here the editors decide if the article is worthy for publication. So here's an example of an article from a scholarly publication, and it doesn't have that format or structure like the peer-reviewed publication does. Here you have the abstract and you have the authors that have the degree programs, and then they have their university affiliations. The next type of publication that we're going to focus on is called a professional or trade publication. These are publications that are usually shorter articles, and these are written by practitioners in a particular field. For instance, if you're a nursing major and you want to take a look at a trade publication or a professional publication, you will notice things like these will be articles written by nurses for nurses in a particular field. These articles also include photographs and illustrations, but they do not attempt to entertain. Simply they're informing us of a what's happening in the profession kind of thing. Let's take a look at the next slide, which shows us the actual physical copies of trade publications. Here I have one called Nursing Times that is exclusively centered around a particular profession, the profession of nursing. So if I'm a nursing major or a nurse, I might consult the trade publication for events, things that's happening in the field, but also things like job announcements. If you're getting close to graduation and you want to find out what jobs are out there, you can consult a trade publication in your field and it will give you job advertisements of positions that are out there. There is a trade publication for every field, for every major on campus. The next type of source is the government publications. These are usually written by a particular government employee, an elected official, or an expert in a particular field. Generally, these publications are created to run the government or make informed decisions to inform the general population. Let's take a look at some of these. These can be published annually, weekly, monthly, and so forth. Here I have the Congressional Record, which is the proceedings and debates of a particular congressional session. This is an example of a government publication that comes out not one time, but multiple times through the year. Here you have volume 140, number 59. So it's a periodical in the sense that it's published not just one time. The Statistical Abstracts of the United States is an example of another government publication that's an annual. Here it's a statistical compilation of data and events that have occurred. If you're looking up statistical data for a class, you might consult the Statistical Abstracts. It's an invaluable tool. Now we're going to shift focus where we previously talked about journal articles and there being two types, the peer-reviewed, refereed, and the scholarly journals. And then we talked about trade and government publications. Now we want to talk about popular sources of information, popular periodicals in the form of magazines and newspapers. The first type of periodical we're going to focus on is the entertainment and the popular publication. Here, these are articles that are written by staff writers or journalists that are employed by the publication. These are shorter articles written for the general public that may include glossy pages, many photographs, and lots of advertisements. So here's an example of some of the entertainment magazine sources that you may encounter: Glamour, Entertainment Weekly, and so forth. Okay, we're going to continue talking about the popular sources of information in the form of newspapers now. Newspapers are published generally daily, some multiple times a day, with different editions being published morning and afternoon. News publications are generally written by journalists or staff writers that are employed by the publication. They're going to report on current events in a timely fashion, and lots of advertisements and photographs are usually associated with the news publications. So here's some examples: the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Even though I have journal listed, the Wall Street Journal is a newspaper source. We have multiple databases that have access to these newspapers. LexisNexis Academic, that can be found on the library database page, is an excellent source to access 100% full text of newspaper articles. Finally, we're going to conclude talking about the publications in the form of special interest and opinion pieces. These are usually written typically by a non-expert in a field, but it could be an expert expressing his or her opinion. For the general public, you're subscribing to a particular point of view when you're reviewing an opinion piece. These publications also provide a particular point of view expressing that individual's. So these are sources that are available for the general public, but it's focusing on a particular point of view.